The perfection that's in the balance of nature is empirical evidence of the creative genius of God. He set it up. Whether he used the process of evolution or whatever process he used, I don't know and I don't care. But once you get to know all the intimate details of all of this, it's incredible.
She would never admit it, but Geraldine Watson knows as much about the ecology of the big thicket as anyone. For over half a century, she has fought to preserve the forests, animals, and plants here in the East Texas piney woods.
I never planned to be a botanist. I never planned to be an ecologist. I never planned to be a park ranger. I just simply seemed to drift into things.
Today, Geraldine spends most of her time in this 10-acre preserve, caretaker of a tiny remnant of the beautiful virgin forests of her childhood.
I stopped and I walked out on that point and I said, this is where I'm going to spend my declining years. Don't you think this is a nice spot? All around us are little spots like this. If we just look for them and protect them and appreciate them, you know, we'll always have them.
Geraldine started her preserve back in the early 1960s. It's located about 45 miles north of Beaumont, bordering the north shore of Lake Hyatt. She chose this site because it contained almost all of the plant communities for which the big thicket is famous. And season by season, she's transformed her property into a botanical showplace.
See how well that's doing that, Pauline?
Yes.
And I transplanted.
I saw that the other day and it looked great.
Yeah.
Paul Rawling is documenting the plant species here.
There's always some new flowers here blooming. There we go. Been coming out here 5, 6 years now. Well, I still haven't photographed all of them. The pink one is blooming out here now today. It's so complicated here as far as really understanding the flowers, because there are so many and they're so unusual.
The loss of each plant or each animal takes us, me personally, closer to extinction, because we're all part of the chain of life.
Geraldine has lived her entire life within a few miles of the East Texas town of Warren. Warren is mostly a throughway for a region that produces wood and paper products. It's an industry that contributes billions of dollars each year to the local economy. But with that economic impact come consequences. The decline of the big thicket started while Geraldine was still a child. Huge old-growth forests were cut to fuel the fires of progress. And that fueled the fire of Geraldine's activism.
I was with the Park Service for 15 years as the plant ecologist, and all of that time I was screaming and yelling and jumping up and down. How are we going to save the world if we don't understand it? If we don't understand what makes it what it is?
What interests me most about the big thicket is its diversity. There are at least 9 different plant associations here which are totally distinct, yet so close together that you can literally walk from swamp to desert in a few yards.
By the 1960s, 90% of the virgin forests were already gone. That's about the time the Big Thicket Association was formed, and Geraldine was one of the founding members.
She could talk to groups, and she was so good at explaining what was unique about the Big Thicket.
Geraldine was as comfortable testifying to congressional subcommittees as she was talking to Audubon groups, and her book, Big Thicket Plant Ecology, elevated her to near rock star status within the botany world.
Her 8 ecosystems that she put together gave everyone a better understanding of what we were trying to save and why we were trying to save it. I think her contribution was just immeasurable.
In the old days, there were very few people like me, and we were called those little old ladies in tennis shoes.
But those little old ladies turned out to be a formidable group.
You start out asking for 300,000 acres, and you wind up with 84,000, but that's pretty typical of legislation, I think. You get compromised and compromised and compromised.
Well, frankly, I never dreamed we would ever save any of the Big Thicket.
But the National Preserve only happened after a decade of contentious negotiation with the timber and oil companies.
It wasn't a smooth path, and there was controversy involved. And so she struggled to get this message across, but she was victorious.
That victory came with a cost. Geraldine and her family were ostracized by many people in their East Texas community.
The 10 years we were trying to get a bill passed. You have no idea what my children went through.
But the family stuck together through good times and bad. And one of her children, David, grew up to be as passionate about conservation as Geraldine herself. It was David who helped her manage the preserve, right up until his death in a car wreck in early 2008. Geraldine was devastated.
I often think that I am not proud of anything that I have done, that as my children have grown up and grown older and my husband is gone, I think of all of the days and the hours I spent out in the woods and the fields with other people when I could have been spending time with them.
But here, Geraldine is not alone. She has found peace and purpose, at one with her land and her higher power.
As she gets in the cart and says, "I'm ready to go."
Geraldine is still trying to save the world. Only now she's limited her efforts to these 10 acres. But what she's done here is remarkable, providing tangible proof that land can be restored and ecosystems can be revived. Geraldine would just call it preserving empirical evidence of the creative genius of God.
You know, I would rather somebody knock me on the head and throw me in the river than for me to sit on a sofa watching soap operas and eating myself into oblivion.